So, you want dynamite darts content? Well, Alex Moss and Burton DeWitt have you covered. Love these guys. For bullseyes, bounce-outs, and darting brilliance, keep it right here. You are listening to the weekly Dartscast. Now, I'm Canadian and often get asked how Canadians call out a maximum, a 180? Well, it sounds something like this. 100, eh? T.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, back as always with my co-host, Darts statistician and a man whose team, unlike mine, are through to the second round of the Carabao Cup. Burton DeWitt, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Episode 164, the highest checkout I've ever had. Probably will stay that way for the rest of my life. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm doing good too, and I think mine's 161, so I'm a little bit further back than you. But yeah, we've got lots to delve into on the show. We're going to get into some BDO talk in a moment. Of course, we've got to talk about the Premier League restart, the league phase coming to a close at the weekend. We've got a few guests coming up as well. Fan Leung and Nathan Aspinall are going to be joining us a little bit later. I'm also going to hear from friend of the show, Andrew Sinclair from inside the WDF as well. But let's get into that big news that's come out today, really. And the UKDA takes control of the county game and it leaves the BDO with virtually nothing now. I mean, how do you reflect on this day, a day which will probably go down in darts history?
I mean, it's been building for the last couple weeks. Every day a new county or a couple counties have announced that they would join the UKDA, and over the weekend at the end of last weekend, over the weekend, the floodgates really opened, and we were seeing 2 to 5 counties every day defect, including some that were on Des Jacqueline's list of those that had committed to the BDO. And we're recording Monday evening, so there hasn't been yet, as of the time of recording, an official announcement, just a Facebook post from Des Jacqueline announcing that Lincolnshire and the remaining counties had switched over. By the time you're listening, it's very possible we'll have had an official announcement, but it seems to be that the BDO is done. The BDO, of course, they're the arm that put up the World Championship, the World Masters, the other events was liquidated or entered liquidation a few months ago, but the county game remained under their other organization, which part of the BDO, and had all plans to go forward. That obviously fell apart, both because of UKDA and Mad Darts, who are now working together, taking over the county game and trying to build something new. It is a very, very sad day. All that history of nearly half a century, both with the World Masters and the World Championships, but as well with the county game, as well being the first group that really unified darts back in the 1970s. And it's no more. I don't know what else to say. It's just, we knew this was coming. John O'Shea posted earlier saying that that he'll be the last World Master, and that's a sad thought. Martin Adams came through and said that it was over by the World Masters. That was where he knew that the BDO was done. It's been a long, drawn-out process, accelerated over the past year, and it does leave a void. Even if the WDF, even if UKDA are able to fill parts of it, even if they're able to completely replace the BDO, it does leave a void because of the loss of history, and that can't ever be replaced.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And 7th September 2020, it will be a day that darts fans, people that listen to the show, people that follow darts closely, will remember as probably the day that the BDO did come to an end. And as you say, the side of the BDO, which has been running the World Championship, the World Masters, that fell away a little while ago. But the county game, that is what they were looking to carry it on. And go back 6th of August, we put out a special, The Future of County Darts, and I spoke to a representative from the BDO, from the UKDA, and from the Tri-Nations, the three bodies that were looking to take on the county game forward. And a month later, not even 5 weeks later, and pretty much got to a conclusion now, haven't we? I mean, this afternoon, I think the UKDA put out that they've got 42 of the counties signed up to them. I think over the weekend, the BDO had about not even double figures that had signed up to them, and a couple of them have then since switched over to the UKDA. And there's Jacqueline putting out on social media, I think last Wednesday, that the BDO was very much alive. Well, we're not even 5 days later, and it's looking like it's come to an end. And yeah, it is a sad day. You touched on the comments that Martin Adams made quite recently in an interview. He said that the BDO died with Ollie Croft, who of course sadly passed away towards the end of last year, I think around about November time, so that was a few weeks after the World Masters. And ourselves on this show, we like to cover the BDO, the PDC, all as much darts as we can, and we've seen it at close hand what's been going on with the BDO. It's been in trouble for a while. Of course, I was at the World Masters and the World Championship, and you can kind of see it at first hand, these big events that we've all come to know over the years, and not getting the crowds, the prize money going down as well. It's been coming, and you've got to say that the BDO, one of the things that they were holding on to really with keeping these counties was that they've been running it for such a long time. They had all this history, but when you look at it, BDO started in 1973, close to 50 years they've been going, and for a start-up company, the UKDA, only been around for 4 or 5 months to essentially take over the county system. It does show you that change was needed, and we've got that now with the UKDA.
And now we'll move on to our first guest, who will hopefully shed some more light into everything going on. It's the host of Inside the WDF podcast and friend of the show, Andrew Sinclair.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the host of Inside the WDF podcast, Andrew Sinclair. Thanks very much for joining us, Andrew. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you, mate. It's a pleasure to be back on.
It's nice to have you on, and we last had you on the show on finals day of the BDO World Championship. Feels like a long time ago now, back in January at the O2, and there were rumours flying around that it would be the last BDO World Championship, and here we are in early September, and those rumours have come true. I mean, when did you start to get the idea that Wayne Warren's win that night would be the last ever in the BDO World Championship?
I think there was a strong bit of me that sort of knew, the moment the double went in, there was a feeling that this is probably going to be the last one. But as someone who's followed the organisation for sort of 13 years, almost my entire darting fandom really, there was always this rose-tinted spectacle view that maybe things aren't as bad as you're led to believe, and there's always hope that it'll get better and it'll improve and they'll be back next year and they survived crises before and all that sort of thing. But I think once we went into the lockdown, I think it became very, very obvious that the end was nigh, and then the battle came up for the BICC and who was going to run the county game. And I think it was weird because realistically, the BDO have always had problems with the televised events and things like that, but the county side, there's never really been an issue. That's always run fairly smoothly. But when you saw people en masse just going to the UKDA and looking for something else, it became immediately apparent that, too many bridges have been burned, too many relationships have gone sour, and we've come to the end.
And it has been the county side of things that has really dominated the BDO over the last few months. Obviously, with no events going on, it's been who's going to take over the county side of things. And we've seen this week, it is the UKDA. They are taking control. I mean, when you first heard about them and their plans, a new company that was coming in, all their ideas and ambitions, what was your initial reaction?
I mean, my main fear, really, my first reaction was fear that we'd end up with a split between, be it, the BDO and the UKDA or the BDO and the Tri-Nations, because initially it was just the BDO and the Tri-Nations, and I was worried that it'd be a split between those two, and then you can't have an efficient county system split between two bodies where half the country are with one and half are with the other. But when the UKDA released their final proposals, I was very, very impressed. I thought it looked incredibly professional, and really they were the only ones who'd got a good grasp of social media. And ultimately that's going to make the difference, because in order for these counties to be sustainable, they need to find means of getting themselves revenue, and being active on social media is key to that. Providing people with updates and all that sort of thing is important now. People have got used to having instant access to results and tables and all that sort of thing, and they were the only ones who seemed to have understood that and grasped it. And I think throughout the whole thing they've conducted themselves very professionally, been very organised. And the other ones, they've either been very quiet or it's been lots of backbiting at each other. That, this one said this, or if you stay with this one, you're signing up to this, and these ones are unprofessional, and the BDO's this. It got a bit tiresome in the end of just the backbiting and stuff. But I thought the UKDA were super professional from the start. When I spoke to Colin Savage back in June, I was very, very impressed with everything they'd got, and it looks like the county game's moving in a positive direction under their leadership.
Absolutely, and we've seen the last couple of weeks, maybe more so in the last week, that they've built some real momentum. The counties have been racking up, and I think they're around 40 before obviously the start of this week when the BDO announced that they were saying all their counties are going to go to the UKDA as well. But when did you start to feel like they were going to take over and it was going to be the UKDA that was going to take everything forward?
I think the moment for me was when Lancashire announced that they had joined the UKDA, or the UKDA announced that Lancashire had joined them, because it was widely assumed that Lancashire would go with the Tri-Nations, because Tommy Thompson, who, head of England darts and runs the Tri-Nations, Lancashire through and through, and they were his county. So my assumption, I think a lot of other people assumed that they would go with him. And then when it came out that they joined the UKDA, it was like, right, if one of the biggest counties in the country and one who seemed a dead cert to go the other way has actually joined the UKDA, if they join, that sends out a big message to a lot of the other counties who haven't voted yet, who'll think, well, if a Premier Division team is going, then there's obviously benefit for us as a lower division team to look at moving as well.
Definitely, and when we first met at the O2 in January, your brilliant show that you host was still called Inside the BDO. Of course, now it's known as Inside the WDF. You had the rebrand, and how hard was that transition? Because I remember speaking to you at the O2 and hearing about your love for the BDO, and that is what got you into darts.
It was hard, but I think I kind of had to realise that I either packed it in or I carried on and really adapted to what was obviously coming, that the WDF were going to be running the World Championship and World Master style events, and the BDO was going to be relegated to counties and potentially, the British Open and the British Classic. So, it was a hard decision, but it was one that I had to make, and I'm glad that I have, because the rebrand's gone well, and, I certainly am confident that darts is moving in a good direction.
Yeah, there's been some great content from you over the last few months I've enjoyed listening to. I know a lot of our listeners have enjoyed listening to as well, but what's it been like changing that focus on your content now away from the BDO and more on the matters with the WDF?
I mean, ultimately, it's still the same content, really, because you're interviewing the same players who are fundamentally playing on the same tour. But obviously, the wrinkle to that has been there's been no darts. And the darts situation is even worse on the amateur side, because the travelling you can't do, and the financial side just isn't there to support the initiatives the PDC have got with the home tour and being able to house 128 people in a bubble for a week to run 5 events. I think that's brilliant, but ultimately money has always been the undoing of the BDO or the WDF, and they can't do that. So we've had 6 months of absolutely no ranking events, and it's very hard to see anything getting the go-ahead before the end of the year. So a lot of conversations start off, how's the lockdown been, and what are your plans now? Because you've not been able to really play any competitive darts for a very long time. So it's been strange, but certainly I think a lot of players are just keen to get playing and get travelling again. So hopefully we'll have something soon. But, went for the Golden Arrows thing as well, which, came sort of an idea from you, really. And it's been brilliant to actually just talk people about, darts from years gone by. And it's kept me busy, but also it's kind of given me content when really interviewing players is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, that's what I was going to come on to next. Your Golden Arrow series up to 17 episodes now. You put out one with Steve Beaton earlier this week, and I know you've spoke to a wide range of players that we will be very familiar with, some that we maybe won't remember that much from the past, but as I say, a lot of different players that you've spoke to. Who have you most enjoyed getting to chat to so far?
I mean, obviously Steve Beaton is a hero of mine, so that one was personally I enjoy that one a lot. But I think in terms of kind of the stories that I was able to hear, I think it's some of the ones that maybe you don't necessarily expect. So started off with Tony David, who obviously had an incredible journey to even be playing darts in the first place at the level he was, to talk through his World Championship win and what it meant, but then also his life after that, where came close to dying on a couple of occasions, and that was just incredible. Talking to Richie Burnett, obviously, about the drug ban and the mental health struggles he's had was very, very eye-opening. But it was also just really interesting talking to someone like Dita Hedman about her experiences of, racism in the sport, and also her being quite upfront about struggling with the menopause when she was playing in the World Championship final, or talking to someone like Wayne Weaning about what the split meant for players in Australia, who were sort of, if they went and joined the WDC, now the PDC, they were stuck because they were so much more isolated than even players like Nicky Vrachko and others in America. So I think really it's the variety I think I've enjoyed more than anything else, is hearing from a wide range of people and hearing those stories from years gone by. But probably personal highlights would probably be sort of, Dita Hedman, Richie Burnett, Tony David, Steve Beaton. But, there's 3 more to go, and then hopefully we'll come to the end of the run for now, at least, anyway.
And let's get on to the WDF then. As far as they're concerned, start of this year, just after the BDO World Championship, they outlined some big plans that they were looking to bring in. which have obviously been put back due to the virus that's come out, and the tour's still on hold at the moment. Realistically, what timeline do you see for the WDF going forward in these big events when they're hoping to get them on?
I think it's very challenging. I mean, I know they've already said that the World Masters won't go ahead this year, and really, it's hard to see how they could get a World Championship to go ahead when their calendar is obviously going to run January to December, same as the PDC. So it's going to be very hard to host a World Championship when you've only had 3 months of a ranking season. And you bear in mind there's a fairly slow start on that side anyway with, the BDO World Championship and so on. I don't know whether they then look at maybe rolling points over that were won in 2019 for a World Championship. I think it's going to be very hard to put one on, but I know they want to. But obviously, the practicalities and obviously the money and the TV and stuff, forgetting the ranking business, I think it's going to be very, very challenging. And I think realistically, it's got to be next year is going to be a reset, and you just go from there. How that affects the rankings, I don't really know. But I think 2021 has really got to be the sort of a fresh start for them, and they go from there. But you think the start of next year, I was talking to John Scott yesterday about this. I mean, the events that are traditionally earlier in the year are the Dutch Open and the events in Romania. Well, I don't understand how you could have 6,000 people in a hall in Assen trying to play the biggest competition of the year in February of next year. At the moment, I just don't think that's practical in any way. So even if they do start again next year, going to start from scratch maybe in January, I think it's going to take quite a long while for things to get up to speed and get back to normal. So my anticipation would be probably the end of 2021 would be when we'd see the first of those majors. But a lot could change between now and then.
Well, fingers crossed for that. And lastly, before we let you go, we've got to give a mention to the Bang Average League as well. Some top quality darts that has been able to go on over the last few months. Yourself and us have been co-hosting these events, and now into our third season being run by the guys at Darts Atlas this season as well. Any highlights you can pick out so far?
Well, for me, hitting a 180 was a miracle, I think. So that was fun. But I think really it's just been sort of running it. It's been quite nice, and it's kind of given, certainly me, it's given me something to do and keep an eye out for. And I think we've just offered something to players as well. So, not necessarily the players who would usually be playing, in online competitions, but just guys who are looking for, a bit of fun, a few fun games, and meet a few new friends as well. So I think it's been nice seeing people come together, and, beating one of my colleagues twice was a particular highlight for me.
Excellent. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how this season goes. And Andrew, always nice to have a catch up with you. Keep up the great work that you're doing with Inside the WDF. Looking forward to keeping up the great stuff that we're doing with the Bang Average League as well.
Very much so, mate. Thank you for having me on again.
Thanks to Andrew for taking some time to join us. Now we'll switch over to the PDC, and I should say I'm sure we'll be talking more about the BDO in the coming weeks as we get more clarity. As I said when we were answering, it is, as of the time of recording, there still hasn't been an official announcement, but we expect that we'll talk about more in the future. But we'll go back to the PDC now. Last week, of course, the Premier League continued with nights 13, 14, 15, and 16, the last 4 nights of the league stage. And, well, a lot of surprises. Glenn Durrant in his debut season finished top of the table. Nathan Aspinall also qualifying in his debut season, while the world number 1, 4-time reigning champion Mikel van Gaarin, who had never finished lower than first in the Premier League, misses out on the playoffs entirely. What do you make of that, and who do you make now the favorite to win the title at the O2 next month, assuming it's at the O2?
Yeah, it was a really exciting conclusion to the tournament, and I suppose Mikel van Gaarin to take a lot of the headlines really with his struggles last week, not getting into the top 4, not finishing top for the first time, and Glenn Durrant as well. I know he didn't really get too many good results last week, but what he'd done in the previous few weeks and months was more than enough for him to finish top of the table. I know it was very close in the end, the table. Glenn 1 point ahead of Peter Wright, another point further ahead of Nathan Aspinall and Gary Anderson. So the 4 players that have qualified, only 2 points between them, and I've probably got to go back and have a look, but I'm pretty sure that's probably the closest it's been between the top 4. So in terms of a favourite in that respect, it is very hard to call. If I had to call it right now, I probably would go with Peter Wright, because I know he's the slight bookie's favourite ahead of Gary Anderson at this moment in time when we're chatting on this Monday. there's still a long way to go until we actually have the finals night, and currently due to take place on the 22nd of October at the O2. And I remember we did a show a couple of weeks ago now, and I was quite bullish. I thought that we were going to get the finals night on the Sunday just gone at Milton Keynes and get it out of the way, but the PDC, they've stuck to their guns with that. They're gonna keep it somewhere else, and you're going to hear from Nathan Aspinall in a few moments' time. And okay, I know he's got a vested interest in it because he has qualified for the finals, and he'd like to play it in a big venue with some crowd there as well. He's a player that does thrive on the crowd. But he made some very good points, and I know you haven't listened to the interview yet, Burton, so you can't really talk too much about what Nathan has said. But he said he felt it was a good decision to keep it at the O2 or take it further away, and a few reasons really, of course, to hopefully get some fans in the venue. And I know it's been a busy couple of weeks for these players. I know they're only playing 35 minutes these games, some of them a lot shorter, but there's the mental side of things that it's been a lot for these players to take in, especially someone like Nathan Aspinall who's never had to do something like this before. So I think at this moment in time I would give the edge to Peter Wright, but we are talking 6 to 7 weeks away from when the finals night are going to take place. And if we're basing it on the current form, Peter Wright was in some very good form last week, won all 4 of his games. The other players slipped up a little bit last week, so the form man at this moment in time is Peter Wright, but things could change before then, and these players are going to get a little bit of a break now, but before the finals night. And I think it'd be good as well because you've got that little bit of a build-up. I think there'll be 10 days after the World Grand Prix final before these players will meet up at the O2 or wherever it may be for the finals night. So they're going to get a little bit of rest and to get themselves ready for it. But I think at this moment in time, I would give the edge to Peter Wright. But a lot could change in the next 6 to 7 weeks. We could be talking in the lead up to that finals night that, Nathan Aspinall, he's playing some unbelievable stuff. Peter Wright's dropped off a little bit, or Glenn Durrant's starting to pick up some form again, pick up some results, and still a lot to be decided in that respect.
Yeah, it's that's exactly right, though. Because of how far off it is, it makes it very difficult right now to make a selection. If you go based on the form at the end of the Premier League, Glenn Durrant was in the worst form of those 4. I think part of that was due to the pressure that he might have been feeling on nights 13 and 14 to wrap up the number 1 overall spot in the table. But then at the end, it wasn't much to play for the final couple days, especially the final day, because he had already had clinched the top number 1 overall record by the time he played. But he only got 2 points from his last 4 matches. The only person who did even as bad, let alone worse, was Michael Smith, who also had 2 points from his last 4. Even Michael van Gerwen, who missed out, got 3 points. Daryl Gurney finished bottom, also got 3 points. So Durrant comes in the worst form of the 4, while Peter Wright comes in having 1 point in a row. And maybe that attributes to the odds. Even though he topped the table, at least as of Saturday when I saw it, Glenn Durrant was the longest price at 7-2 to win it. Nathan Aspinall 3-1, second longest. It seems to be a bit unfair for a player who was the form player for most of the Premier League, not just before the break when he went into the 4 or 5 month break as the number 1 overall player, but up until the last couple of nights throughout the entire league stage. I don't know who should be considered the favorite. I think Peter Wright is most likely to go into it as the favorite because, he's been the best or second best player in the world for the last year, starting, of course, with the World Championship, but continuing through how he's been keeping that form going throughout most of 2020. But Glenn Durrant is the number 1 seed. Glenn Durrant is the player who earned that right to be the person to beat heading into here. And he's shown that he can handle the Premier League, whether it's in front of 15,000 people, whether it's in front of 10 people, half of which are the people on stage and the other half their managers backstage. He has earned this position and should be the favorite, if not on the odds, in terms of who we expect to win. But we'll see what it's like in 6 weeks. We'll see what form these players are in.
Let's talk a little bit more about Mikel van Gerwen then, and this comes into our first of 2 questions of the week that we've put out on Twitter. Go and check them out at Weekly Dartscast and place your vote. Let us know what you're thinking. But the first one is, which player missing out on the Premier League playoffs surprised you the most? Phil Taylor in 2015 or Mikel van Gerwen in 2020?
I think you have to say Mikel van Gerwen, because Phil Taylor was struggling at that point in his career. Obviously, he rebounded the next couple years, especially in his final season, winning the World Match Play, making the World Final. But he rebounded over the next couple years, but he was struggling entering that Premier League, and he was struggling exiting that Premier League. And it showed. That's why he ended up missing out for the only time in his career and missing out with a night to spare. Mikel van Gaarin, there was no signs that this was coming. Yeah, he hasn't been at his brilliant best, well, for the last few years, really. But he's still been the best player in the world, or at worst, the second best player in the world at any given time. There's never been a time where there were multiple people who you could say were better than him. Maybe near the end of last year when Gaarin Price was really firing, you could say Mikel van Gaarin on a given day could be the third best player in the world, but day in, day out was probably the best or second best. He didn't look it, though, over the last 2 weeks. He didn't look anything near it on most nights. There were flashes. There were performances that maybe didn't rival his best, but rivaled him when he was playing near his best. But those were flashes. He looked nothing like it, and it came out of nowhere because he was playing very well before the break this year in the Premier League and out of the Premier League, even though he was playing with his new darts. And he was playing very well when the season restarted, winning 2 of the first 3 events in the summer series. There were no signs entering this that he was going to miss out on the playoffs. There were no signs that he was anything other than the heavy favorite to end up topping the Premier League. Well, a couple weeks later, and he matched Daryl Gurney in Milton Keynes, and Daryl Gurney finished bottom of the table. He matched him with 4 wins, a draw, and 5 defeats, and his goal differential was 12 worse than Daryl Gurney. Mikel van Gaarin was pummeled when he lost, and he didn't dominate people in most of the matches he won. It's the complete opposite of what we normally see from him. I don't know what to make of it, but it was surprising. Phil Taylor missing out really wasn't. So I have to go Mikel van Gaarin because this one just came completely out of the blue.
Yeah, you've gone with Mikel van Gaarin, and the majority of people on our poll at the moment, it's only a day into it at the moment, but 77% going with Mikel van Gaarin, 23% going with Phil Taylor. And it's an interesting one because that was the first time, 2015, that Phil Taylor missed out on the playoffs. And of course, this is the first time that Mikel van Gaarin's missed out on it. And for Mikel, he's not just missed out on the playoffs, but every single year that he's been in the Premier League, he's finished top and he's made the final. He's not won it every single year, but he's won it, I think, 5 out of 7 times. But when it's got to that playoffs, he's gone in as the number 1 seed and he's got to the final. And okay, he's lost a couple of finals, but that is a magnificent record. And for him to not make the top 4, to finish 6th in the end in the table is very surprising. But as you say, you look back on his performances over the last couple of weeks during this Premier League restart, and we talk about the World Match Play, the previous tournament that we had when he went out early as well with a below par performance against Simon Whitlock in the second round. But these are the sort of performances that Mikel has been putting in recent weeks. And just touching on a couple of games from last week, the 8-1 defeat to Peter Wright. Okay, we got to the end of the first bit of the restart. We got to night 12 and he just put in 100 plus average. He was 3rd in the table going into the final 4 games. And at that point, you're probably thinking, yeah, he's going to do enough to get in that top 4. And in the end, that is not the case. You know, he's lost 2 of the 4 games, 8-1 to Peter Wright the first game back, which must have really dented his confidence. Get a couple of days break like all the players did. Then they came back, and to lose in such a manner was not what we expected at all. Draws with Glenn Durrant the following night. I think he had match starts to win that one 8-5 maybe. So again, it's a missed opportunity there for him to really keep himself in the mix. Beats Gary Anderson the following night in a last leg 8-6. But the final game, an 8-2 defeat to the handicapper's nightmare himself, living up to his name, Daryl Gurney. And again, it's a 91 average. So he's, for me, I've got to go with Mikel van Gaarin as well. No one expected him to miss out on the top 4. Yes, it's been a very competitive Premier League. You look at the top 6-7 players, the rolling averages is around 97 to 99 for those top 7. So it has been one of the tightest Premier Leagues we can remember. We look at the top 4 separated by 2 points. It's been very tight, but going into this Premier League and going into the restart, you would definitely have expected Mikel to finish in that top 4. Phil Taylor, okay, he wasn't the world number 1, I don't think, in 2015. Thinking back to it now, he was still one of the top players in the game, but there was his dominant years had certainly passed, and his time as the world number 1 had gone. So yeah, I think it's got to be Mikel van Gaarin for me as well.
And one more thing to add on that. Even though Phil Taylor missed out in 2015 and was playing far from his best, still averaged nearly 103 in the league. week while missing out. Not too shabby. But now we'll move on to our second guest, as you mentioned. It's with one of the two players on debut who managed to qualify for the O2, Nathan Aspinall.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the former major winner, Nathan Aspinall. Thanks very much for joining us, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And we last had you on the show back in February, just after your full Premier League debut in Aberdeen, and you'd just picked up your first Pro Tour title of the year. And for the most part, it's been a strange 6 or 7 months since then. How have you found this period personally?
A bit up and down, really. It was nice to, when we did get when we got told, obviously, Darts had been cancelled, obviously by no fault of our own. It was nice to spend some time with the family. Obviously, everything's kind of got a bit mental for me over the last 2 years, so it's given me a bit of time to sit down and look at how far my career's come and how far my life's changed over the last 2 years, which is something I've not really had the time to do. So in that respect, yeah, it was nice, but on the other hand, I was playing some really good stuff before lockdown, so it kind of hit me for six because I thought I could have done some damage, obviously in the Premier League and events that were coming up. But these things happen, and at least we're back to playing now, and I carried on where I left off, thankfully.
Definitely, yeah, and it seems like a long time ago now, but just before everything was shut down, we had the UK Open in Minehead. You were back there for your title defence from 12 months ago, and I suppose it was a hard draw, really, the random draw, giving you Mikel van Gerwen in your first game. How did you feel when you were leaving Minehead?
I didn't really laugh when we sat in the chalet and we were watching the draw, and I just had this weird feeling that I was going to play him, and obviously I had. I think a couple of weeks before I beat him in the Premier League as well, so I was confident I could get the win over him. But he got some new darts and he played brilliant, to be fair, and obviously went on to win the title. So I was disappointed. Obviously, my first time defending the title, and it didn't go how I planned it. But these things happen, and I didn't play poorly from my part. So it's just a better guy won on the day, really.
And a week or so later, you beat Mikel on the way to another title on the floor, getting a little bit of revenge there. And after that weekend, of course, we had the 4-month break from the tour, everything shutting down, as you touched on earlier. You were one of the form players at the time before that break. So how did you find it at first with all these events being cancelled?
Yeah, it was annoying. Like you say, I think the last weekend before obviously the lockdown started, I'd won a Pro Tour. I was playing, arguably the best stuff I've ever thrown. I was doing well in the Premier League. Like I say, I beat Mikel early on in the season as well. So I was a bit annoyed and frustrated, but like I said earlier, there is more important things in life than darts. Obviously, I wanted to make sure I was healthy and the family was, so that was the most important thing at the time. But yeah, like I say, it's we're not getting to the end of it yet, but at least there's some kind of darts back.
Yeah, and we saw during the break the PDC introduced the home tour, and you went all the way to win the whole thing, lift the dinner plate as well. I think you celebrated in the hot tub as well after it. Have you seen those six have also, they've got the trophy made now? It looks quite smart.
Yeah, I've seen it the other day on Twitter. I've actually not got it because I think the PDC did some kind of prediction league throughout the home tour, with the winners obviously presenting the winner with the trophy. So it's still not in my house. I've still got my dinner plate up at the moment. But it was good, the home tour. I was a bit sceptical at first because I'm not really a big practicer, to be quite honest with you. So I didn't really fancy doing it, but obviously once I got my teeth into it, I started playing some good stuff, and the final night was brilliant. I had a great game against Gaarin, and obviously to come out on top of it, it wasn't a TV title, but you still beat the best players in the world to win it. So I was very happy, and obviously since then I've been rewarded with a Grand Slam spot for it, which just kind of came out of nowhere, really. I didn't know I was going to get in it through that, but I went up to Matt Porter and thanked him very kindly for sticking me in it for that. Yeah,
that's going to be my next question, actually. We saw the Grand Slam criteria come out a couple of weeks ago now, and of course for winning the home tour you've got into the field. So when did you find out that winning that event was going to get you in the Grand Slam?
When everyone else knew, to be quite honest with you. I never actually received an email or a message off anyone. I was just on Twitter one day flicking through, and I seen the updated obviously qualifying criteria, and I clicked on it, and I seen my name there for winning the home tour. So No, it's quite buzzing really, because the Grand Slam's probably the hardest one to get into, because you've got to either win something or become a runner-up. I think I probably still would have done it anyway, due to obviously the 2 Pro Tours that I'd won. But to at least obviously halfway through the year to be, find out I'm definitely guaranteed in the Grand Slam, it was a nice little bonus.
And since then, we've seen the tour return, in-person darts again, the Pro Tour with the Summer Series. A week later, the World Match Play behind closed doors in Milton Keynes. And for yourself, you lost out to the eventual winner, Dimitri van den Berg, and we saw on stage how disappointed you were during that game. But when you saw him go on and win the title, did the defeat hurt a little less?
No, not really. I wasn't looking forward to it anyway. I didn't know how I would do, obviously, without the crowd. I've said it in a load of interviews during the Premier League that I'm a bit of a, I love the crowd, I feed off the crowd, I jump around like an idiot on stage, and obviously when I've got no crowd there, it's quite hard to get up for it like that. So I wasn't looking forward to the match play. Dimitri played brilliant against me, to be fair. His finishing was brilliant, and if I don't win tournaments, it's always nice if another young lad like me wins it, because we've grown up together playing on the development tour, so it's always nice to see another young lad doing well, and fair play to him, and hopefully now he can kick on like I did.
And of course, after that, we saw that the PDC announced they were going to carry on the Premier League behind closed doors as well, so a similar setup to what you had for the World Match Play. How did you try and adjust then to the new scenario that you had to play under?
Yeah, I was dreading it. To be honest, I was after how the match play went. I know certainly me and Gezi were probably the 2 players that were thinking, how we're going to cope, how we're going to struggle to get motivated and pumped up. So I tried a few little. I just tried to get myself up, even when I was practicing, trying to get the adrenaline going in a quiet environment as opposed to 10,000 people screaming. So that's what I kind of did building up to the Premier League. And I think the first probably 2 games, I struggled to get that, like I say, the blood pumping, but I kind of got used to it come probably the 2nd or 3rd night, and obviously it kind of worked well for me.
Yeah, it definitely did, getting in the top 4 on your Premier League debut. And looking back at the last couple of weeks, it was a little bit up and down for you in terms of the results. You'd win one night, then lose the next night. You'd be in the top 4, then you'd be out the top 4. I mean, and especially nowadays with what you had to do, you had to play night after night. There wasn't that week break between the games. So how did you find that whole scenario, that whole situation of being in such a tight race to get in that top 4?
Stressful. It was. It's probably been the toughest 2 weeks of my life, in all honesty. I've never played as much darts in my career, to be quite honest, day in, day out. Obviously, knowing that you have to perform at your top level, and even if you do that, it's not necessarily that you've won the game. So it was hard. I'm playing the best 8 players every night. There's no room for I've got an easy game tonight. If you have an off game, I can still get the win. There's none of that. You just have to produce your best every night, and it was tough. And like you say, I was in the playoffs. I was out the playoffs, and it was every day I was thinking, well, if I don't win tonight, I'm going to drop down to 7th. If I do win, I can go up to 2nd, and all these things are going through your head, and then you've got to try and keep focused and do the job in hand. So yeah, it was a tough 2 weeks. Obviously, I missed my family as well. I've been at home for 5 months. Even though they're doing me head in, I still missed them when I was away. But we got the result we wanted in the end, and we made that top 4.
Yeah, I mean, from the outside looking in, it did look like a little bit of a pressure cooker for the players, really, that night after night having to play. I know the games are pretty short, usually around half an hour, so you've got a lot of downtime during the day as well. How are you filling your days while you're in Milton Keynes waiting for the night and the games to get underway?
I started playing. I took my golf clubs with me. As a lot of people know, I love my golf, and I won a game. I'd play golf, and then I lost, and then I'd won, and then the day after I play golf, and I'd lose. So the management team and the family banned me from playing golf. So they said no more of that. So it just obviously we all knock around together. We all get on well. Behind the scenes, and going out. I was with Devin Peterson and Matt Ward, his manager, quite a lot. Go and have something to eat, go and have a coffee and have a chat and put the world to right, because we've got nothing else to do. But yeah, it was on that respect, it was quite tough, because obviously we're not playing until 7-8 o'clock at night. I don't really sleep well when I'm away, so I'm up at 6 o'clock. It's a long day to just be sat in a hotel, but it could be worse. It could be sat behind an office doing Excel spreadsheets still. So you can't feel too sorry for yourself.
No, definitely not. And we saw the emotion from yourself on Saturday night, the final game of the league phase. You knew what you had to do to get into that top four, and you done it. You got the win against Glendaran, and we saw the leg that you won to secure your place in the top four, how much it meant to you. I mean, looking back now, I know it's been a few days, but where does finishing in the top four rank among your achievements so far?
Look, I said in interviews after the match, it was probably the biggest win of my career. It's not my best moment, but it's certainly the biggest win of my career. How I handled myself under the pressure. I think you look at Mikel van Gerwen. He has been struggling, but I've never seen him perform and miss doubles and produce so poor standard. And I purely put that down to he was feeling the pressure. I was an absolute bag of nerves before I walked on, but normally when I'm under pressure and there's a lot riding on things, that's when I do normally produce my best stuff, and I did it again. Obviously, my signature 170 shot was in there as well, which is always nice to do. My game plan was to try and keep composed. Obviously, like I said earlier on, I do like to give it a bit on stage, but sometimes it's not always the right thing to do. It's very tiring when you start screaming like an idiot, like I do. So I just thought, keep calm, keep composed. When you do get to that 7, if you do get to the 7, let everything out, and that's kind of what I did. I have seen it back. I was apologising to Glenn because obviously how I reacted, which is something I don't normally do. But I think he knew how important it was for me and how important that leg was. So yeah, it was a brilliant night. I played, probably the best stuff I played all week. And finally I hit some doubles because I think if I'd finished like I did on Saturday night for the rest of the week, I wouldn't have been in that position. But thankfully for me on Saturday I finished brilliant, and I got what I needed to do.
Definitely, yeah, and just a couple really to finish looking ahead, and it's going to be a long wait now before the playoffs. I think towards the end of October now. I know the PDC are hoping to get a crowd for that finals night at the O2, but yourself being in Milton Keynes for the last few weeks and seeing how well that this run, the whole thing, are you a little bit surprised that they maybe didn't tag the finals night onto Sunday at the end of last week?
No, I think they made the right decision. Obviously, they said originally that they might play the finals on the Sunday. I think it would take the occasion away from it if it just followed on from 10 nights of darts and then you play the finals. I don't think it would. Certainly, the players wouldn't feel like it is as big as it actually is. For me, it's the second, third biggest tournament in the world of darts. So I think they've done the right decision, giving it a break. Obviously, we was all absolutely shattered, to say the least. So at least we can go away, get prepared how we'd normally prepare for such a big night. Obviously, we've got a few more tournaments in between that now, but I think they definitely made the right decision, and wherever it'll be, I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully I can lift the maid in the Premier League.
Yeah, and let's finish off with what you've got coming up before the playoffs. Of course, before the Premier League restarted, you did have a little bit of a break between the World Match Play, but there's going to be plenty to keep you busy before the playoffs. You've got the Autumn Series in Germany this week, the World Series finals Austria next week, another European tour, then the World Grand Prix a little while after that. How are you feeling about that schedule, and are you pleased to see your diary starting to fill up again?
Yeah, I can't wait. I love darts. I love playing darts. I love winning titles and achieving my dreams, and that kind of obviously got took away from me during lockdown, but it's coming back slowly but surely. Obviously it's going to be tough on my two children and Kirsty, because obviously I'm not going to be home pretty much now for the next 6 weeks. It's going to be hard in that respect, but at the end of the day, I'm a dart player, it's my job, and I'm looking forward to hopefully continuing where I left off on Saturday night, because they played brilliant, and hopefully add another title this week in Germany. And then obviously we've got the World Series, which I think it has got fans. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure that there's fans there, so it'd be nice to actually play in front of someone instead of 8 speakers for once.
Excellent. Well, Nathan, it's always nice to get you on. Really appreciate you taking out some time to have a chat with us, and congratulations again on qualifying for the Premier League playoffs, and wish you all the best in Germany this weekend.
Yeah, cheers mate, thanks a lot.
Thanks again to Nathan for joining us, and just a word on our sponsors, Low 6. If you guys follow us on Twitter or any social media, you'll know that Low Six have announced they're going to extend their partnership with us as our official sponsor. Got to say a massive thank you to those guys. Of course, long-time listeners of the show will know that Low Six have sponsored us for a little while now, dating back to when we had the home tour, the PDC home tour. They're, of course, the title sponsor of that event. But, yeah, just want to say a big thanks to those guys, and anyone who's getting involved in the contest as well. You can get involved, go up against us on our predictions, go up against fellow listeners as well. Download the Low Six app from the Apple and Google app stores. You've got to be 18 plus to play, resident in the UK, and of course we have to mention you've got to please gamble responsibly, begambleaware.org for that. But yeah, hopefully we might get a contest in this week with the Autumn Series or the World Series finals next week. So yeah, go and check them guys out, and as I say, really appreciate their support. But let's get into a question really about the next month coming up. There's a lot of darts from the darts leader, the PDC, coming up over the next 4 or 5 weeks. We've got the Pro Tour 5 events with the Autumn Series starting on Saturday. Of course, the World Series finals qualifier kicking things off in Germany on Friday. We've also got a European Tour event, and we've also got 2 TV events coming up with the World Series finals and the World Grand Prix. So a lot of darts being packed in over the next month. But what are you most looking forward to from a busy month from the darts leader?
Yeah, I mean, the one at the end of that is one of my favorite events. I love the World Grand Prix with the double-in format. We've talked about it multiple times on the show. I think the PDC should try to bring in more events with unique or different formats. And the World Grand Prix right now, well, I guess you could say the World Cup as well with the pairs format, but that's still 501 straight in. The World Grand Prix is really the only thing that is something different, and I wish there were more things like that, and it makes it such a great event. Even if it's going to be in Coventry this year, it's still fantastic. But I'm really looking forward to the return of the Pro Tour. There are quite a few players we haven't seen in quite some time. Okay, there's the second staging of the darts at home going on right now, but that's being overshadowed. It was overshadowed by the Premier League last week, and it's going to be overshadowed by pretty much everything else in the next month. There was nothing to overshadow it other than the coronavirus pandemic during the first staging of the darts at home. So for most of these players, the last time we saw them was for that 1 week in July, and prior to that, we really hadn't seen them in months. Devin Peterson in phenomenal form over the summer and in the spring, in line to qualify for the first time for the World Grand Prix. It'd be great to see him back playing. Great to see some of those players who in their first year who were making strides. Jeff Smith from Canada. Even some of the players who hadn't yet found their stride. Maybe this will be the week for them. I'm really looking forward to it. I love the Pro Tour, and to get it 5 days in a row, what more can you ask for?
I'm going to go the other direction then, and it's probably an answer I never thought I'd say, because it's a TV event, but we never really delved too much into it. It's not one of the biggest events that these guys have got to play for, but at this moment in time, I'm going to go with the World Series finals. And as I say, I never thought I'd be saying that as an event that I'd be looking forward to the most when you've got a World Grand Prix, a European Tour, and these 5 Pro Tours coming up. But when we're recording this, we're not quite sure what the lineup's going to be for Germany this weekend, and we're not quite sure what the lineup's going to be for the World Grand Prix. That's going to still to be finalised. But yeah, for me, I'm going to go the World Series finals just because, and it's one of the bigger reasons, really. I know it's coming up a week on Friday from Austria, but we're going to see the fans, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to see some fans back in the audience. So for a TV event, it will be the first one for darts to have a crowd back at least. And we're going to come on to talk a little bit more about the crowds and that with one of the listener questions we've got coming up. But yeah, for me, I'm going to go the World Series finals. And okay, we saw the news on this Monday earlier today. Gaarin, one of the top seeds, pulling out. He's also pulled out of the Autumn Series as well. And Krzysztof Ratajski's got the invite to that. But even so, it's a quality lineup there. You've got a lot of the Premier League boys that have been involved. You've also got some players higher up on the PDC order of merit. We're going to see Dimitri Vandenberg get on that big stage, the newly crowned world match play champion, Glenn Durrant, the Premier League leader. Krzysztof Ratajski, as I mentioned, just been given that invite. And then you've also got a few of the international representatives, players that we haven't seen play for a little while, like Damon Heta, who went back to Australia with Kyle Anderson. We didn't see him in the summer series, and we're not quite sure. We haven't seen the lineup yet, whether he's going to be going to Germany this weekend. So it'd be nice to see him playing again. Of course, Fallon Sherrock as well. We're not seeing her play on that big stage since the Premier League, and nice chance for her to get on that big stage again. And you know, there's a few players there, and we don't know what the draw's going to lend itself to, who's going to play who, and the 4 players that are going to come through that tour card holder qualifier this Friday. But for me, I think darts, a big thing about the darts and it being on TV is having that crowd there, and a lot of players do thrive on having that crowd there to get themselves going and
to perform at their best as well. So for me, this moment in time, I'm going to go with the World Series Finals.
And now we'll move on to our third and final interview of the week, and it's with one of the new tour card holders, but a very experienced player in soft tip and on the Asian Tour, Fan Leung.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Hong Kong's number one, Fan Leung. Thanks very much for joining us. How are you doing?
Good, man, yourself?
Doing well, thank you. And let's start at the beginning for you in darts. In 2017, we saw you play at Q School at the start of that year. But before then, how long had you been playing and where did your interest in darts come from?
Yeah, I think my first played in 2013, May or June. That's the really first time I grabbed my three house start in a electronic machines, darts live machine in the bar. That's how I started darts. But I was quite rejected in the beginning because at that time my colleague and some of friends played darts, but because I played golf at that time, so I thought it was stupid game at that time. That's why I didn't touch. But then some occasions in 2013 when me and my friend went to the bar, then how I started it and I keep practicing. I think until 2015 I grabbed the first three steel tip darts to play the steel tip board as well. So it's like on and between these years, it's like 5 to 6 years, I think.
So from picking up steel tip darts 2015, a couple of years later, you're then trying to get onto the professional circuit. What was the thinking behind going to Q School and giving it a go in 2017?
I think I quit my job and then I take my very seriously as darts as my career in 2016. So, and then, of course, at that moment was mainly soft tip in Asia, which I played. But then Royden, at that time in 2017, said he will compete the Q School. I think he lost that card after the 2 years. So he somebody to go with him. So I just go with him. I just went with him in 2017. And plus, my cousins live in Liverpool, so I can have a chance to meet him as well.
Excellent. Well, after that first Q School, you didn't get a card on that occasion, but you did take part in the UK Open Qualifiers a week or so later, and under the old format back then, you were playing against tour card holders. What was it like playing in those events and against the best players in the world?
It was amazing. The Q School was amazing, basically the very intense 4 days. At that time, there's no splitting between UK or European players, so everybody played in weekend. In terms of the UK Open Qualifier, yeah, it was still in the old format, right? So even your number one seed, you still have to play the UK Open Qualifier. So I can, at that time, can see all the tour card players, right? So even I play some of them as well. So it's really a eyes wide open, and very much I learn a lot from these people as well. And very luckily, I think I gone through to the final as well with Royden. So then we come back to Minehead for the UK Open final. But I think I lost my first game against Jermaine Vatamina in the Minehead when I come back afterwards. But actually it's a very good experience because maybe that experience builds now as well, because now 2020 is my second time playing the UK Open. I think I went to second or third round, so which means I improve a little bit step by step.
Definitely, yeah. And you look back to 2017, it was a bit of a breakthrough year for you. You got into the UK Open, of course, you played in the PDC World Cup as well, and then towards the end of that year, you win through the North and East Asia qualifier to earn your debut at the PDC World Championship, and the draw you pulled out with Paul Lim. How special was that to share the stage with Paul on your Ali Pali debut?
Yeah, I think the World Cup was special as well because it was my debut or first time playing the World Cup, because obviously Royden and Scott McKenzie always play for Hong Kong, and then I think their best the result was quarterfinal as well. So it's always good to play for your home country, right, as a national team. So I was looking forward at that time as well. I think we lost to Russia. But when you talk about the World Championship, yeah, I remember the day that Pauline won the Southeast Asian qualifier in Thailand, where I was playing WDF World Cup in Japan. So after he watched the live stream online that he won, we were very happy. And then I rang him up. Yeah, come on, you could do it in the other one in the Northeast Asian, so we can go it together. So it happens in the end. So we both made it, and it's my first time as well to play in the Annapali. But we're supposed to, do some practices before going to Annapali, but it came out that the draw is between me and him. So then afterwards, we didn't do any private sections or some sections with him afterwards. That was very funny.
And as you know, we spoke to Paul a couple of weeks ago for our Darts Legends series, and he's asked a question to you. He said, do you miss him?
I do, yeah. I text him every 2 weeks. Asking, and then sometimes FaceTime with him. Basically live in Hong Kong for 10 years now, so I think the last 1 or 2 years I've got a good relation with him, because I think I fly. We share the room sometimes because of the national team or other events. We share the room, or play against each other 8 to 10 times as well last year. So learn a lot from him, and then even, we chill a lot, So I do miss him, and I do miss Hong Kong.
In terms of Hong Kong, of course, you've represented them last year in World Cups as well, but when we look at Q School, we didn't see you in 2018 or 2019. So what drove you to enter again at the start of this year?
Yeah, I didn't participate in the Q School in 2018 and 19 because it's very hard, for an Asian or foreign countries, people or darters to play in the Q School. It costs a lot of money. I think that's really a hurdle or barriers for international players to come over in UK. Even now, it's very hard as well, when I play here, and then it's very hard, to live here, to participate or compete as well. So, in terms of 2020, why do I come back again for the Q School? I don't know, because Roda is not coming this time. But one of my mates really want to come. I asked him whether you want to join after a Singapore soft tip in January as well, and they said yes. So that's why I came in the end, and didn't really have the intention 100% to think, I would get the tour card, but eventually I did.
Yeah, that's right. On the second day, you come through the field to win your tour card. You beat Dave Prince 5-4 in the last 8, and then Lisa Ashton 5-4 in the final game. So 2 very close games to get that tour card in the end. I mean, how did it feel when you'd beaten Lisa to win that tour card?
Oh, I mean, that was a huge game as well, because whoever wins, we've got a tour card. Of course, I think behind, even if it's a closed-door tournament or even as a Q School tournament, there are 100 people standing behind the last board. I think the other board was Damon Heater and Bradley. My board is me against Lisa. So yeah, there were 100 people behind us. I think a lot of pressure. You can say pressure, but to be honest, I wanted Lisa to get a tour card as well, because I knew she just nearly missed out last year. So everybody wants her to win, but in the end, she got a tour card as well, which I was very glad, and I was very happy to get it in the second day. I think the first day I got some good averages. I don't know how did it came. I think I shoot 2 times 107, 108 average, 2 games, even in short format, but I couldn't know how I did that. And yeah, but it's a good sign that he carried on, bring the good momentum to the second day as well.
Definitely, yeah. And for yourself, being from Hong Kong to get to the UK, I think it's the best part of 6,000 miles. And I know you've been staying over a little bit since then, but on a usual trip, how long does it take to get from Hong Kong to over here in the UK?
Normally 14 hours if it's a direct flight. If it's transit in Dubai or in Frankfurt, then it's going to be 18 hours.
Yeah, certainly a lot of travelling, a lot of commitment, and when you get the tour card, obviously there's a lot that's going to change for you then in terms of your schedule for the year, and next year at least you've got entry into all the Players' Championship events, the UK Open, and some more as well, I'm sure. And I know we had the 4-month break, but you've played in everything so far this year. Was that always the aim when you got the tour card, to commit to as much as you could?
Yeah, after I got a tour card, or even before, I really want to come to play. And then, because if you got a tour card, you don't play here, you don't compete with the best. How can you know what's your ability, or how can you know how far could you go, right? Sometimes you need a little push. When the door opens, then that's a way to go, right? Of course, if the door shuts, then probably you might need to think a little bit. But if that tour card's door is open, so definitely you need to put like 100%. At least participation, right? If you don't participate, it's very hard, to sustain or to play against or compete with the best.
And I read in an interview you did recently, you said about your cousin who lives in Liverpool, so you've stayed up there until the virus shut down the tour, but it was also chatting to Stephen Bunting. You struck up a friendship with him and also a practice partner as well.
Yeah, I'm now staying with him. Just came yesterday, so I'm in his home right now. I think that helps as well, because my cousin lives in Liverpool, so I can have a stay with him. At least somebody, he stayed here for 20 years already, so he knows everything. So which is good for me as well to have a stay, which didn't give me a lot of in terms of financial. Otherwise if I need to rent another place, then the cost will be a lot, right? But as my cousin stay here, he got a spare room, so which is good that I can stay with him. Plus, I live in Liverpool, and Stephen lives in St. Helens, so it's very close. We both can practice together. I still remember the time that I met Stephen was in Barnsley. I think the first day or second day, and then somehow I sit in his table, and then I spoke to him. Live in Liverpool, blah blah blah, and then because in 2017 I think when Royden and I came, and then I think he invited Royden to came to his place as well, but we didn't go to his place at that time, so I just introduced myself, etc. So it's very nice to me. I mean, invited me to his league teams to play with him, practice with him, so I think it's really good.
Yeah, you got a great practice partner there, and also I believe he's shown you around a little bit as well. He took you to some Liverpool FC games, and he invited you to watch him in the Premier League when he was a challenger in Liverpool. What were those experiences like?
Oh, it's amazing. I think he brought me 2 times to the Liverpool Anfield, watch against West Ham and Athletic Madrid in the European Champion. There was huge atmosphere, and then the day after the European Champions League was the Premier League, right, in M&S. So I watched, I think that's the last game before everything shuts. The last Premier League game as well. I think, wow, I think it's a quite good atmosphere, amazing atmosphere, and then you can see how people, how people like darts, these sports, in and out. So when I go to Liverpool, like sometimes everybody recognizes his face. Are you Stephen Bunting, or are you play darts? Yeah, I think darts in this country, the sports, everybody knows these sports. While in Hong Kong, not a lot of people play darts, right? It's not the mainstream sports in Hong Kong, so it's a little bit different. So you feel good, you want to be on the stage when you watch a lot of these big games, tournaments, or if you live in a, good place, which basically, that's why there are a lot of sportsmen in the UK, and why sports are so popular in the UK. I think that's the reason you want to stay.
Just a couple more before we let you go, and the Pro Tour resumes later this week in Germany with the Autumn Series. You've got the World Series qualifier first on the Friday. I mean, how much are you looking forward to playing again? It's been a little bit of a break for a lot of the tour card holders since the Summer Series.
I think it was literally like 2 months after the summer series. I found it a little bit awkward this time because last time the summer series I nearly can't play because visa issues. But I came in UK and then literally clarified with the PTPA about the visa issue. Basically, I can play. But I was waiting in the quarantine for 7 to 8 days in UK, so I was keep waiting whether I can play or not. But eventually I did, so which is good. And then now 2 months. It's 2 months after the summer series. I feel a little bit exhausted. I practice every day, but seems to need still not in the competitive, environment yet. I see how it goes, when the real game comes again. So hopefully can raise the game level to compete with the rest of the field.
And lastly, is the only current tour card holder from Asia right now. How does that feel? I mean, when do you play? Do you feel like you're flying the flag for not just Hong Kong, but Asia and Asian darts as well?
Yeah, as I said, it's very hard for even you're a really good player. I think there are lots of good Asian players. But it's very hard, for them to really make the move, try to attempt the Q-School and even try to stay, even after you win a tour card. So if you can't say if I succeed, but now I'm trying to, step by step to see how it goes, right? But it might give people another example about whether, that can make it happen, right? At least if people see it, Kai can make it happen, even it's not on the top like 64 yet or top elite yet, but it still have a chance. So I think it gives an example. I can't say the example, but at least an example of all the Asian players. If they really want to, if you have really good ability and if you want to play against the best, then come over. So I think that would be a good example for them as well. Just like my 2 Hong Kong young guys, they are trying to come for the World Youth Championship qualifier later this month, September, in Barnsley as well. So that's I say. I mean, you will see people looking forward to trying to attempt more. While before maybe not many people trying to attempt in the PTC, but I think that will help as well. That will help me, of course, and that hopefully will help some of the other players. But if they really want to come over UK, maybe when I got experience, then I can tell them what to do, the preparation, stuff like that. So which is good for me as well. If there's another Hong Kong player or Asian player can play against in the PTC circuit, so at least I got somebody to play with as well.
Fingers crossed for that. Well, Kai, I really appreciate you taking out some time to have a chat with us, and wish you safe travels to Germany later this week, and wish you all the best for that and for the rest of the year as well.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you to Kai Fan for joining us this week. We have one more question of the week, then we'll get to our listener questions. It deals with the Autumn Series, which we just talked about, and it's, will we see a first-time PDC senior ranking title winner over those 5 events in the Autumn Series?
Yeah, this vote at the moment is a little bit closer than the other one that we mentioned earlier. Yes, 58% of you going with and 42% going with no. And I'm going to go with the slight majority on this one. I do fancy there to be a new senior ranking title winner in the Autumn Series. Of course, the Summer Series, we saw Ryan Joyce come out of the field to pick up that first title, and that got him into the World Match Player debut at the World Match Play. And I think there's just too many good players that over the course of these 5 days coming up, 5 events to play in, the probability is that we could see a new first-time winner, and a few names that I've got to give a mention to, I suppose, if I'm going to pick someone out to maybe break their duck and get that first ranking title, senior ranking title. I suppose for a lot of these players, when I'm picking these names out, I'm just going back on the form, what we've seen them last do, because it has been a little while since we've seen a lot of them play. For the majority of people, and you touched on there, the PDC have started up the second home tour for the lower ranked players, started last week. They've had a chance to play a little bit of online darts competitive stuff, but it's been the best part of 8-9 weeks since that Summer Series, and if they weren't involved in the World Match Play, it's a good 2 months without action. So we're not quite sure what the players that were playing well towards the end of that Summer Series, what their form's like. I mean, you mentioned Devin Peterson, who was very close to himself getting in the World Match Play and winning a possible first senior ranking title. If he can
carry on the form that he left off in. He could potentially be one. I'll give a mention to a player a little bit closer to where I am at the moment, Ryan Mikel, who had some big performances towards the end of that summer series. I know he pushed Michael van Gerwen very close in the game, and he was putting into some big averages towards the end of the week. I know he didn't start the week very well, but towards the end of it, he looked like he was picking up a bit of form. And okay, he's won a major title now, but Dimitri van den Berg yet to win a floor title, a senior floor title in the PDC. Perhaps given the fact that he's now got that first big PDC ranking title under his belt with the World Match Play, this could be the chance for him to get that first title on the floor among the big boys as well.
I think Devin Peterson has a title coming. He finally made his first semifinal fairly recently. Averaged nearly 114 in that match. He was playing phenomenally all year long. He's gone from his A game has gone up 5 levels in the past year and a half since changing his throw. His B game is now his old A game. He has become a real world-class player, and that first title is coming for him, and it could come this week. You went with someone closer to home for you. I'll go with someone closer to home for me, still very, very far, but the closest tour card holder to home for me. Jeff Smith made a final earlier this year, but there are a few other players who were playing really well once we got into that break that still haven't won on the PDC tour. Trying to think who might be further down, who just could get over the line and finally win one. I'll go for a bit of a dark horse in there, the Croatian, Boris, I can never pronounce his last name, but he's a multiple world champion in soft tip. He is a world-class player. Once he gets that opportunity, and once it clicks in the PDC, and it will click, he will win a title. He hasn't done much this year. He's only won, I think, 5 or 6 matches so far in the PDC. But maybe playing in Europe, playing closer to home is what it's going to take. And once it does come together, his soft tip game is the best in the world, or one of the best in the world. He'll get it done in steel tip. So that's my player from way off the beaten path that I think could get it done. But to go back, yes, I do agree. I think there will be a first-time winner, and there's many people who it might be.
Let's finish up then with some listener questions. The first one comes in from a long-time listener, John Thompson, who says, with there being no signs yet that the UK government has a clue about sports events, should the PDC move the Worlds now to a location where the authorities are consistent and know what they're doing? I'm sure Stockholm has a decent venue.
I mean, I don't know if anyone knows what they're doing right now, because how can you know what is the right call right now? That said, consistency is important. Maybe the place to move it would be Australia or New Zealand. What an opportunity that would be. In the middle of it'll be better weather, middle of summer, able to have a crowd, and we know we'll be able to have a crowd. The only problem is it's going to force all the European players away from their families for the holidays, but that's what the Oceanic players have always had to deal with. The other possibility is having to quarantine for an extended period of time on arrival there. But maybe that's the way to go. Maybe this is that opportunity to try a world championship on the other side of the globe. I don't know where in Europe or North America or Asia it would be realistic right now. Well, maybe Asia would be realistic, but yeah, there is no right decision right now because every decision has its drawbacks and it's still completely unpredictable. I think changing it now is not the right move, but maybe changing it in a month will be. We'll see how things go. But I'm just throwing that out there. How about that World Championship in Australia?
Wow, it's interesting you say that because I had another potential place the World Championship could go, and I'll come on to it in a moment, but it's a difficult decision, and you look at things at the moment, I'm sure the PDC are looking at all the options, and it's probably a little bit early to make any decisions now. We're still in early September. The World Championship usually starts around mid-December, but it's going to come a point, isn't there, if things carry on the way they are and nothing really changes, they are going to have to make a very big decision. And the Ali-Pali, the tickets, they're always going to sell. Whenever you put them on sale, you could put them on sale 2 weeks before the start date, and probably likely they will sell out. And it's usually around this time of the year that myself, I'll be able to get some tickets on the resale, because when they go on general sale, if they get to general sale, they go too quick for me anyway. But it is a tough one, and you've got to say the PDC have done a great job in keeping these events going. As we touched on earlier, there's a lot of events coming up now across various different countries, but you've got to say they are probably losing a bit of money with having no crowds. I know they're going to get a limited crowd in for the World Series finals and the European Tour event, but you think of the event that they've got coming up this weekend, the Autumn Series starting up, and I think all the players now, they've got to get there earlier and have the testing as well, and I'm assuming the PDC will pay for all the first round of testing again, so that's a expense that they didn't really need to have, but that's what they've got. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'll go somewhere else. I know you said Australia, and be well up for that. Definitely, you guys get us over there as well. That'd be nice. But how about maybe an outdoor world championship, and I'll pick out Dubai possibly as a place to go over. I'm not quite sure what the deal is with their cases and death rate at the moment, but you look at the outdoor things that are going on here in the UK. The football is started again, and we're hoping that we're going to see some test events over the next few weeks, and from October we're going to allow some fans back in. How about maybe doing it as an outdoor world championship? And one of the things I'm thinking of as well is the last game we saw in the Dubai World Series back in, I think it was 2017. You had that unbelievable final with Gary Anderson and Mikel van Gerwen, both players averaging 110. So I'm not quite sure. I think that was in May time, so I'm not quite sure what it's like there in December or January. It might be too windy and the darts will go everywhere, a bit like me on a Wednesday night. But that could possibly be one. I don't know. But yeah, I still think it's probably a little bit too early.
And last question, this one comes from @SportingGoose. If the BDO do fold, do you anticipate another World Championship taking their calendar spot? Would personally love some kind of replacement. As I said, that comes from @SportingGoose.
I certainly think we're going to see something, and we've spoken about this for the best part of 8-9 months really, since we had that BDO World Championship, and then the announcements that came from the WDF not long after that saying that they're looking to put on their own World Masters style event and World Championship event. And unfortunately, because of, well, a lot of things, it's because of the coronavirus, a lot of the plans have been shut down. And we had Richard Ashdown, who's part of the WDF, set up on the show a couple of months ago now, and he was saying that before the coronavirus, they were very close to announcing some venues, announcing some dates and details about their own World Masters and World Championship. But until you get the tour going again, and until you get the ranking points for players to play for, you're not going to see these big events from the WDF, MAD, UKDA, whatever organisation it is. It's very difficult to put these events on at the moment, and especially if you're just starting these events up. But in terms of the WDF, pretty much all of September's now cancelled. October, I think there's maybe a handful of events that are still currently going on at the time of recording, but there is a lot of events in October, November and December that have already been cancelled. So you're probably looking at the rest of this year as a write-off, and then hopefully in 2021, when things hopefully get back to a little bit more normality and we can get these tournaments on again from the WDF side of things, we could see maybe some plans put together. But I do think, and this is to quote you, Burton, here, we are just going to have to hang tight a little bit, whether it is the WDF or MAD or whoever that wants to put on these events for the players that would have played in a BDO World Championship or a World Masters. We are just going to have to wait a little bit now until we get these events back on, and then I'm sure we'll hear some more plans from them.
Exactly. This is the worst year you can pick to start a business. Obviously, the WDF not starting from scratch, but in terms of putting on having a commercial arm, they are starting from scratch, and it was a bad year to do that. They had no choice but to scrap it, at least for the next year, and reassess next year when hopefully things will be, well, at least a little bit more manageable. UKDA obviously doing a great job starting from scratch, but a little bit easier to keep it local and you're just filling someone else's shoes. I'd like to see something to run the amateur side of darts, and I'd like there to be some sort of world championship and a few other big events for the amateur side of darts. It doesn't have to be even at the prize money that the BDO historically offered for the world championship, but at least some prize and some incentive for players around the globe to give it a go, and something to hopefully, if they're able to succeed, to kickstart them if they choose to go professional after that. That is what is missing without a BDO World Championship. So hopefully someone will fill that shoes. To have that little acorn dangling at the end of the rope at the end of the year for those amateur players is worth having. As you said, we'll have to do what I always say, and that's hang tight and see what happens in 2021. I think something will materialize, whether it be with the WDF, whether it be with someone else. But I do think it will, and I do hope it will. Anything else for this week?
Yeah, fingers crossed that. Just to say a couple of things actually before we go. Our Premier League Prediction League, we do have a winner. We don't need to do the picks for finals now. I'm sure myself and you will give it a go anyway, because between me and you, there's still a lot to play for. But in terms of our prediction league that we've been running, congratulations goes out to @Glenn Sport News, who is the winner of this year's Premier League prediction league. I think he's on 91 points, 16 points clear, and there's only 12 points you can pick up on the final tonight. So he's the winner. He's going to be receiving the signed set of Michael van Gogh in darts, courtesy of our friends at Windmouth. So big thanks again to Windmouth for supplying that prize, and thanks everyone that's got involved in the prediction league. We had a lot of entries over the last couple of weeks, so thanks everyone for getting involved and playing. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what the score is between me and you, Burton, because I didn't bother putting in my picks on Saturday, but 61-55 ahead with those 3 games to go for the finals tonight. So yeah, still a lot to play for. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to our guests as well. Appreciate all of them for coming on, and enjoy the darts over the weekend and start of next week. And I'm sure we'll try and squeeze something in between the Autumn Series and the World Series finals if we can.
Amazing that I gained 6 times as many points on you on the last day that we both got our picks in than I did on the day that only I got my picks in, beating you 12-6 on night 15 and 1-0 to your 0 picks at all on night 16. But I'll take the clean sheet. Gives me just that slim chance entering finals night. I'll have to go differently than you do on everything, but hope for the best and prepare for the worst, and that is not beating you in this. Maybe my joker will hit bang on and it'll be a draw with us getting everything else wrong. But anyway, thanks again to our guests. Thanks to everyone for listening and sending in the questions. Thanks for our sponsor, Low Six, for helping present this show. We'll be back, I guess, next week to recap. We don't yet know exactly what we'll be recapping, but probably some official news from the BDO. Obviously, also the Autumn Series getting underway. But for Alex Moss, I am Burton DeWitt. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Until then, hang tight.